obviously invited, so call me back. Okay, I love you. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Emotionally Online. Ooh, look at that. Timing is absolutely impeccable this morning. I'm recording this episode in the morning, which is unusual for me. Usually I'm filming towards the evening time, towards the nighttime. So I'm really getting morning after the sleepover energy right now. It's like I feel like I should be eating a bacon, egg, and cheese. That was my family's like weekend breakfast of choice. My dad on Sunday mornings usually would make everyone bacon, egg, and cheeses. So if my friends slept over, they'd get some too. But I remember when I was younger, it was like, since we were a bacon, egg, and cheese house, sleeping over my friends' houses who were like cinnamon roll houses, their parents would just like pop in those like Pillsbury cinnamon buns into the oven with the icing. Whatever your house wasn't, it was the most fun to go sleep over at somebody else's house, if that makes sense. So anyways, that's the energy that I'm getting right now, filming this in the morning. Apologies if this episode is a little bit shorter than some of the episodes that I have been doing. I am learning. Your girl is learning what the best way to do this is as I go. It's actually quite hard to talk to yourself for an hour straight. I can do the long episodes when I have my friends here very easily. I can talk to my friends for literally hours and hours and hours, but it might not seem difficult if you've never done it, but sitting and talking to yourself for an hour straight with no one to bounce off of is actually quite difficult. So I'm going to try my best, but now that I don't have Love Island to talk about, which I have been absolutely suffering through, not having something to look forward to at 4 p.m. Eastern time every fucking day, suffering without it and without having that to talk about at the end of the podcast. I'm assuming this week's show might be a little bit shorter, but we'll see. I've been trying to find another reality TV show that really like ignites me the way that Love Island does, so that I'm like, there has to be something to entertain me during this time. I really like The Circle, but I've seen all the seasons of The Circle. But that's really the only reality show besides Love Island that I like love and would have a lot to say about. I started watching F-Boy Island because some people told me to start watching it, and I literally find it so unbearable. I don't know how anybody enjoyed it. I watched the first 5 episodes of season 1. I've heard season 2 is better, but I watched the first 5 episodes of season 1, and it's impossible to get through. It's like so scripted to the point where it doesn't even feel entertaining to watch to me. Like the whole thing feels like uncomfortably scripted. Because obviously there are parts of reality TV that are massaged and manipulated by the producers, but that's like part of the appeal of reality TV. But you got to have good producers that know how to produce realistic drama. The stuff that they are manufacturing, they still have to make it somewhat believable that is the way that it went down. You know, or like it depends how they're manufacturing the drama or like how they're manipulating shit. Because like on Love Island, you can tell when the producers told someone to say something, but they're never, or very rarely does it seem like they're telling them word for word what to say. It seems like most of the time the producers will maybe step in and be like, okay, you have to apologize to this person or like have a conversation about this, bring this up, but they're not gonna literally feed the people lines of what to say, which it felt like F-Boy Island. They're like feeding these people lines word for fucking word. Some of them act like they've got a fucking teleprompter in front of them. Like it is so hard to watch. It's like not entertaining at all because it feels like somebody's cosplaying a reality TV show. It's like when you're 14, 15 years old and you're making YouTube videos in your friend's basement to like mimic Jersey Shore and you're just like, let's just do the confessionals for fun. But it's like it's like 18, seventh graders sitting behind the camera scripting the whole thing out. And it's hilarious to you guys, but to everyone else, it's like, okay. That's what it feels like to watch F-Boy Island. I don't think I can get through it. It's like 5 episodes in and I still don't know half of these guys' names, because that's the other thing, is they clearly film a lot, but they cut fucking all of it out. So you're trying to watch the show and you're 5 episodes in and you're like, who the fuck is that guy? Have I seen that man before? When did he get here? What's his fucking name? Like they cut so much out that it's also hard to connect to literally any of the characters on that fucking show. So anyways, I think it's ass, but I've heard that season 2 is better, so I might try to give that a shot. But I think that my heart is with Love Island at this point. I tried watching Love Island US, can't do it. Can't fucking do that either, because the problem with that one is different. And the problem I have with that does sort of connect to a lot of the reasons why I'm usually not into reality TV dating shows as a whole. I don't like The Bachelor, Bachelorette. I hated Love is Blind. Too Hot to Handle was fucking annoying. I usually don't like dating shows, but I love Love Island. But I didn't want to watch Love Island US because, one, I've heard that the US version is just not as good. And I'm a big fan of the Brits. So I was like, period. I'll believe them. The Brits are telling me that the US sucks, and I believe it. It sounds right. So I was like, let me just stick to Love Island UK because it's so much fucking funnier. But the other thing is, I watched the first episode of Love Island US just to give it a shot. I had nothing better to do. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, this isn't even fun to watch, because I'm like too close to this reality. Like, I know those people. I don't actually, but like I know their types, like the type of people that they're casting on US dating shows. I'm like, God, I know them. They could be my next door fucking neighbors for all I care. But there's something about watching Love Island UK that I'm like, we function off a different enough set of norms or expectations, or just like life in general. There's like different types of people that I feel like I can watch Love Island UK and be like, oh, those are totally different people. Like, I've never met these people before. They're also walking red flags in the same way that people on Love Island US would be, but in a different way, in a way that's a little bit different to me. It's unknown. It's just more entertaining. So I feel like I like Love Island UK better because it's like I can enjoy the fact that they're walking red flags and be like, this is fucking hilarious. But watching Love Island US is almost like, I can't even enjoy that they're walking red flags, because I'm like, I think I went to high school with you. I think I know your type. Like, it almost just makes me stressed out to watch US dating shows, because I'm like, that's the same dating pool that I'm in, right? Those are fellow single people. Like, this is what we're working with. That terrifies me. Versus the dating pool in the UK, I'm like, I'll never know you. That's a completely different dating pool, babes. I don't have to worry about that. So it's like I can just watch it and enjoy my life. But God, I need another reality TV show to watch. So it would have been so good if Love Island US like did it for me, because I do think the Love Island format is just fucking perfect. But I feel like maybe what I've learned here is that I enjoy reality TV in general. I love Catfish. I love The Circle. I love Jersey Shore, forever and always. But when it comes to reality TV dating shows, it needs to not be a US dating show. I can watch dating shows from other countries. I cannot watch it if it's people within the US dating pool. I can't fucking do it. It's too much for me. So anyways, today I wanted to tell you guys a little story. Have a little story time moment. And tell you guys the story of my first kiss. I've definitely told this story before, a very long time ago, on a YouTube video that's for sure deleted at this point. But if you've been around for a long time, you might remember this story. It's kind of hard to forget. Yeah, my first kiss story is not a cute story. It's not a fun story. It's an uncomfortable story. It's one that I have reflected on a lot as an adult, and something that I can laugh at now and have a little bit of fun with, but yeah, it's not a good story. We're not going to be reminiscing on something super romantic and cute. We're going to be, it gets a little bit serious, I'll be honest. So if that's not your vibe today, then that's totally cool. I will catch you next week. But if you're down to hear my awful fucking first kiss story, strap in, baby, because here we fucking go. And then I figured after we cover my first kiss story, we can debrief and bring ourselves back down from what we're about to ignite here and talk about some meaningless internet drama that has been on my mind lately. So let's just get fucking into it, shall we? So I had my first kiss when I was 18 years old. I had just graduated high school. It was the summer between high school and college that I had my first kiss. At this point in time in my life, I was very insecure about the fact that I did not have my first kiss yet. I was trying to think about how to describe my high school 18-year-old self. I was not very cool growing up. I was bullied throughout middle and high school. I've always made YouTube videos, was always a little bit weird, a little bit quirky. I was definitely super cringe at this age. I was sort of on the outskirts of my fangirl phase. I was big on Tumblr, that whole grunge style, Orion Carlotta, Marina, Sky Ferreira, Charlie XCX. That whole style era, I was very much submerged in all of that. I love her. I love my 18-year-old self. I think she's funny as fuck. She's definitely very cringe. But I think when you're 18 years old, you should be cringe. And honestly, I think we're always perpetually cringe. I'm sure that maybe my 40-year-old self will look at me now and be like, cringe. But good, right? It just means that you're living unapologetically. You're not that concerned with what people think of you if you're able to be cringe. It would kind of be boring if you weren't, especially when you're 18. 18-year-olds should be cringe. That to me feels like, okay, you did it right. So if you were on Tumblr between the years of 2012 and 2015, you know the type. That was me to a fucking T. And at that time, I would post on my Tumblr, on my personal Tumblr, all the time about how bothered I was that I didn't have my first kiss. I would, vent on my blog about how I was insecure, that I was going to go to college and I hadn't had my first kiss yet, that I was totally inexperienced. I was always pretty bothered by this, even throughout high school. I, had crushes growing up. I wanted to pursue people and I was rejected by everyone that I liked when I was a kid. So I was definitely feeling a little bit insecure about going to college, having no experience, on top of the fact that I was just insecure about the fact that nobody had liked me growing up. Sweet girl, sweet Maddie. I think about my teenage self, especially those years, all the time because I'm still very connected to that version of me, and I feel like I still carry a lot of that pain that she felt then now. And it pops up at random times in my life. I'm sure that makes sense based on other stories that I've told both on this podcast and on my main channel on YouTube. But yeah, a lot of times I will have moments where I feel extra sad about similar stuff. And it's usually very connected to my teenage self, still feeling so sad about that and feeling oh my God, why couldn't it have been me? So imagine that, but in real time. That's who I am. Nervous about going to college, not having any experience, wanting to fit in New York, make a whole new fucking friend group, wanting to date and put myself out there and hoping to God that I am proven wrong and that I am likable and cool. And it's just my small hometown that is making me feel so unlovable. I would talk about this on my Tumblr all the time. I would just be venting, talking about my fears, my insecurities. I've always been a very open book when it comes to those sorts of things. So yeah, I would post about it all the time. I've always had a following that was around the same age as me. So for me at the time, it was like I was posting it to a bunch of other 16, 17, 18-year-old girls that resonated with the content that I was making on YouTube for whatever reason. I probably had like 15,000 subscribers at the time. So I had like a little audience where I knew a bunch of people personally. I think on Tumblr I probably had like 5,000, 6,000 followers. So it wasn't nothing, but it was small, it was personal. It wasn't like I was posting to like a ton of people about this. I was still like just a random high schooler talking about how she really wanted to have her first kiss. And there was this guy who had been a subscriber of mine for a few years, and he would message me every now and again to compliment me, just like engage with my content online. And he always stood out to me because, to be honest, at the time, not a lot of men engaged with my content on the internet. Even now, the majority of my audience is young women. Obviously, I have a larger following now, so there's more diversity to the people that watch me. But back then, it was really just like only teenage girls that watched my videos. So if a guy was watching my videos and regularly commenting on them, I would remember him. He would stand out to me. And so he would message me quite frequently and comment on a bunch of my videos. And he was always super kind, super, super nice. He was a bit older than me. I believe he was 21 or 22 when I was 18. So it wasn't like a huge age gap. However, it is slightly weird that a 22-year-old boy would have a lot in common with a 17, 18-year-old girl who's kind of dorky, kind of weird, and is crying about not having her first kiss on Tumblr. It does seem a little strange to me that that's the type of content that resonates with you as a 22-year-old guy, but I digress. So summer after I graduated high school, he reached out to me and told me that he was doing a road trip from California to Boston. He lived in California. I grew up in a small town like 45 minutes outside of Boston. I talk about where that is now. I grew up in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. But back then, I never talked about where I lived. I would say that I lived in Massachusetts near Boston, but I would never say where I lived. This is going to be important later. But he said he was doing a road trip across the country and he'd really love to meet up with me. And at this point, like I said, my audience was pretty small. I used to go and grab coffee with people a ton back then. I still do now, but it is harder to grab coffee with people all the time, having a larger audience. But at the time, I loved meeting up with people, as many people as I could. Anytime somebody was in like the Boston area, if they wanted to grab coffee, I was always down to meet up with them. It's always been super fun to me to get to meet the people that watch my videos, especially when they are familiar faces that I recognize and they've been commenting for years and years. So when he asked me if I wanted to hang out when he was in Boston, I was like, yeah, of course. Like, let's get coffee. Let's get lunch. Let's do it. Like, I didn't really think anything of it. I just thought of it like an opportunity to meet and hang out with somebody that has been supporting me for several years at this point. How fun. How cool. I was very naive at that age. And I think that's a part of the story that is like difficult for me looking back on. And I think a lot of people feel this way about decisions their teenage self made or things that their teenage self overlooked. But yeah, there were definitely a lot of red flags in this situation. And I didn't know how to pay attention for them, but also how to stand up for myself once I caught one. I think I was overly forgiving a lot of the time of people being weird. And part of that came from me wanting other people to feel accepted and good about themselves, and like feeling afraid to make people feel bad, because I was like, well, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings by saying no, or by saying that this made me uncomfortable. Like, they probably meant well. Like, I always just like assumed the best of people and used to feel pretty guilty saying no or setting a boundary of mine that would have made someone else uncomfortable in any way. I think I definitely took on a lot of other people's emotions as my own at that time. I cared more about how other people felt than how I felt. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get more into that. But I just want to preface before I get into the meat of the story with that, because to tell this story, it does make me uncomfortable, because it feels like these are not decisions that I would make now. And I obviously know I was a kid at the time and I didn't know better. And I for sure learned a lot through this situation, and it's not my fault I was put in this situation. But yeah, it's just uncomfortable to talk about, because I'm like, God damn, I know that there were many times throughout this story where that could have been the end. That should have been the end. That should have been where I stood up for myself, or when I said, that's not cool with me, I don't want to do that. And I didn't. And that sucks looking back on. But it's in the past. I'm safe. I'm happy. I'm healthy. Like, we're good now. The past cannot hurt me. And I do not blame my 18-year-old self for not always having all the answers and not knowing all the right ways to navigate situations that were complicated. So, he's on this road trip. He arrives in Boston, and we start talking that week, like trying to figure out what we're going to do. I was like, okay, cool. I can drive into Boston and we can meet at this restaurant for lunch. We can, meet at Boston Common. I was like throwing out some ideas. Again, I did not grow up in Boston or even that close to Boston. It was 45 minutes outside. I did spend a decent chunk of time in Boston as a high schooler because I would go to concerts a lot, but I was not particularly well versed in like things to do in Boston, or like where would be best, or even know that much about the city, because I didn't fucking live there. So I was like, yeah, I can drive over. I have a car. I can drive to Boston and meet you somewhere for coffee or lunch. Mango was like, let me get in the middle here. Honey buns, I'm filming. She has been like very, very clingy today. I'll like put her down and she immediately comes over and makes me pick her back up again. Earlier today, I had to take a work phone call, and I was holding her beforehand, and while I'm on the call, she's jumping on my shoulders trying to get me to hold her again, and I'm like, what's up, honey? We can't have any space today? So yeah, I was like, I have a car, I can drive, I can meet you somewhere in Boston, yada yada. And he was like, oh, no worries, I'm actually going out towards the Worcester area with my cousin, if you want to meet at like, somewhere along Route 9. Now, my town is pretty close to Route 9. It's closer to Worcester than it is to Boston, or maybe it's equidistant. I don't really fucking know. But he's going more in my direction. If you're going to Boston, if I say I'm 40 minutes outside of Boston, it could be in any direction. He's going straight down towards my direction. But I was like, maybe that's a coincidence, right? Like, Worcester's another popular area of Massachusetts. Maybe I don't know. I didn't really think anything of it at the time. But he suggested that we meet at a Chipotle that happened to be in the town next door to me in Westboro. So again, at the time, I'm not thinking anything of this. I was like, all right, cool. And went to Chipotle to meet him. Get to Chipotle, meet him, say hi. We're going up there to order, and he tries to pay for my food. And I was like, that's weird. Why is he trying to pay for my food? It only then hit me that maybe he thought this was a date. And I felt panic stricken, because at this point I was like, oh my God, wait, what? Does he think this is a date? Like, I thought this was like a cute little like subscriber lunch meetup. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for watching my videos. I'd love to meet you and like, you know, put a face to the username. Let's hang out. I thought this was like a friendly thing, and it's only now hitting me that he might think this is a date. And I had no idea what to do. Because again, at this point in my life, I had never really been in a situation where anybody had liked me or was pursuing me in any way. I had no idea how to set my own boundaries. And at this point in my life, I was very insecure and almost felt like I had to say yes when things like this were offered to me, because it was like, well, you say that this is what you want. You said you wanted attention from guys. You said you wanted someone to take you on a date. Well, here it is. And I had a hard time like processing not wanting this thing, even though it was what I said I wanted. Which now it's very easy for me to process that. But at the time, being so insecure and feeling like more down on myself, I did feel like I had to like accept anything that came at me. And I was being rude if I didn't. So I tried to sort of play along with it and was just like, you know what? Let's just get through this lunch and then we can take it from there. So we have lunch. It all is going completely fine. And afterwards he's like, so what are we doing now? And I was like, I don't know. What are we doing now? And I was panicking. I had no fucking idea what to say or what to do. At that point, I just wanted to go home. And I made a bad decision here, a bad call here, because I think I just wanted to like be in a familiar space. I felt very uncomfortable hanging out in public where I could run into like my classmates with this guy. I felt like very embarrassed and just kind of like, oh my God, I want to go home. And I was too afraid to reject him and say, no, we're not doing anything else. I'm busy. So instead I was like, well, I have to go home and walk my dog if you want to come walk him with me. So I drove him back to my house and we were getting ready to take my dog out on a walk. We took him out on a little walk through my neighborhood, and then we came back and it was like, what now? What do we fucking do now? I literally had no idea what to do. I was so nervous. I was so scared. And so we were just sitting on my living room couch and I was sitting super far away from him. It was like a 3-seater, 3-cushion couch, and I was on one end and he was on the super far other end of the couch. And he kept saying to me like, you look nervous. Like, come sit closer to me. Come over here. And I was like panicking. I had no idea what to do. And so I just sort of did as I was asked. He asked me to come sit closer to him, so I did. And he put his arm around me and goes into this spiel. And this is going to sound fucking fake, but it's real. It's as real as it gets, babe. He goes into this spiel about how I know that I told you that I was going on this road trip with my cousin to like see the country and explore with him before he goes off to college or something like that. But I actually lied. I went on this road trip so that I could be your first kiss. I read all your posts on Tumblr and I think you are so beautiful. And I just think that someone needs to treat you right. You deserve to have someone that treats you right. And I want to be that person. How do you, as an 18-year-old that has never been shown attention in your life, process that? I don't know how the fuck I was supposed to respond. So he said that to me, and then he kissed me. And that was my first kiss. So at this point in time, I am like, yeah, I have no idea what to say. I felt uncomfortable, really uncomfortable, but I had no idea how to reckon with that feeling. I felt guilty for not being interested in him. I felt guilty for being uncomfortable. I felt like, you said you wanted a first kiss. You said you wanted someone who, you know, thought you were beautiful and was really into you and would want to be with you and whatever. You've been writing all this stuff on Tumblr. He's right. And now it's here and you're feeling off about it. You have like an uneasy feeling in your stomach. And I couldn't make sense of that. I thought that maybe I don't know, maybe I was just nervous. There'd been so much leading up to this, right? I've been dreaming about having my first kiss since I was 10 years old. Like maybe I just feel this way because it's so new and it's hard for me to feel like happy or excited about it because like I'm just shocked. But I felt really uncomfortable. And now looking back, I'm fucking horrified. Honestly, it took me about 6 months after this happened to have it all settle in. I think by about halfway through my freshman year of college, it made sense to me why I felt the way I felt and how like deeply fucked up this was. A 22-year-old that drives across the country to be like some type of savior for some random bitch on Tumblr. And like this whole situation was additionally uncomfortable because I knew nothing about him. Meanwhile, I've been posting YouTube videos for 5 years at this point. So he's been watching my videos for, let's call it 3 years at that point. He knows so much about me. He's been watching my videos. He's been reading my Tumblr posts. He feels like he can intimately understand what I need and what I want, and if he is able to give me that. All the while, I don't know a single fucking thing about him. That is a stranger to me. And he is treating me like this is something serious or something personal and intimate. And it was weird because I'm like, I don't know you. I get that you feel like you know me because I post a lot about myself online, but at the end of the day, I don't know you. Why would I want to have my first kiss with someone that I don't know? And why, as a 22-year-old, do you think to yourself that it's appropriate to go drive across the fucking country to declare your love for some random girl on the fucking internet? I was a kid, and I was a vulnerable kid, and you knew that. You read my Tumblr posts, you watched my videos, like how it's like deeply fucked up. It makes me very uncomfortable to talk about. Like I said, like I don't know how to explain away why a 22-year-old would put a young 18-year-old in this situation. It gets worse though. So after the first kiss happened, I drove him back to the Chipotle because he said that his cousin was coming back with the car and they were going to pick him up. So I go to drop him off, and when I leave, he's like, I'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, okay. Again, have no idea how to say no. So I drop him off, I drive away, and I still have this like icky, uncomfortable feeling in my chest. But on the other hand, I just had my first kiss. That's the thing I've been wanting and talking about for all these years, for all this time. So I'm texting my friends about it, and they're also excited for me. So it sort of calms me down a little bit hearing my friends. I'll be like, you had your first kiss. That's so great. Like, obviously at the time, none of us are thinking critically about how fucking weird this is. We're just like psyched that I had my first kiss and that this guy is interested in me. Like, we're not reflecting on why I feel the way that I feel. It's like I couldn't even begin to comprehend the way that I was feeling. So obviously my friends couldn't either. I remember going to the movies with my friends that night. We saw that fucking Amy Schumer movie. I think it was called Trainwreck. We saw that in theaters. And I remember sitting there watching the movie feeling like so distracted and not able to even really watch the movie because I just felt like a pit in my stomach. And so the next day comes and I was like, let me just get ready and then we can figure something out. At this point, I think he's staying at a hotel in Boston. And yesterday his cousin was going to Worcester, was going to drop him off along the way. We ended up being close to my hometown, whatever. In my head, he is staying at a hotel in Boston. So I get ready and I text him again to see where I should meet him, where I should go. I'm assuming that I'm going to have to go pick him up or something like that. And he gives me a street corner. He's like, I'm on the corner of blank and blank. And I was like, that's weird. Those streets are in walking distance of my house. Huh? I was like, that's really bizarre. It's also a street that doesn't have houses on it. It's like a street in the middle of the woods. And it's like right as you go over the highway. So there's not houses over there. You know what I mean? It's just a straightaway where there's woods. Then there's the part of the road that goes over the highway. And then there's a bunch of cul-de-sacs. But that corner that he was on is not near any houses directly. It was a really weird place to be. I had no idea why he was there. But again, I'm not asking any questions at this point in time. Another red flag. Another point in time where I should have said no. Yeah, which is why this story is like so hard to tell and even like recount. So I go and pick him up at that street corner and we go to a park nearby and we just sit in the park and talk. I was like, this is fine. I can do this. I can hang out in a public park. I can get through today. Tomorrow this won't matter. So we sit in the park and we talk and then we're like, okay, let's go get some food. So we go to our local Uno's, the most delicious food location of all time. We go to the Uno's and he sits on the same side of the booth as me, which fuels why I hate that to this day. Sits on the same side of the booth as me, cringing me the fuck out. And we order our food. Again, we're sitting there talking, and he again starts to go on another one of his spiels about how I am so special and cool and he doesn't know anyone like me, and he asks me to be his girlfriend. Now, thank God, my ability to say no kicked in because I was like, no shot. I was like, yeah, no. I was like, I'm flattered, but I'm going to college. I brushed it off. I blamed it on the fact that I was going to college. I was like, I'm about to go to college. Like, I'm not really looking for a relationship right now because my life's very much in limbo. I didn't want to reject him for any reason that could have been because of him. So the fact that I was about to go to college gave me a nice out. That gave me a way to say no that at the time I felt comfortable with. What I wish I could say is, why the fuck would you ask me a question like that? I don't know you. I don't fucking know you. I met you yesterday for the first time. You feel like you know me because you watch me on the internet. You've been creepy as fuck. You coincidentally ended up at the Chipotle closest to my house, and then you coincidentally ended up a 5-minute walk away from my house on some random fucking street corner where there's no houses nearby. You said you were going to Boston. I don't fucking know you. It's not public what town that I live in. What's happening? What dimension do I live in where any of this is appropriate? You are a fucking weirdo. You are a big fucking weirdo. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, it was just horrible. And so I said no, and he started crying in the middle of the Unos. I swear to fuck, I know this story sounds fake. I know that every part of this story is like, there's no way. There's no way. There shouldn't have been a way, okay? This, in no reality should this have happened. He starts crying in the Unos. And I'm sitting there comforting him through the fact that I just rejected him. Girl that does not know who he is. I have no idea who you are, sir. Has just rejected him. Absolutely insane person behavior. And so we finished our food and we hung out for the rest of the evening. I think we went back to the park. I don't really remember, but at the end of the day, I drove him back to his hotel. And this is when I learned that he was not staying in Boston. He was staying at a hotel in the town right next to me. It is the closest hotel to my parents' house. And again, where I live is not public. At that time in my life, I would have just said that I lived in Massachusetts on the internet. No one knew that I lived in Hopkinton. So he had to have done some extensive research to figure out where I grew up. I'm assuming he probably found some of my relatives on Facebook and then, did the math on where I lived based on that, if I had to make a guess. So that added to how awful all of this was and how absurdly creepy it was. I dropped him off at the hotel, went home, and only then could I start to unpack how icky I felt. After he left Massachusetts that next day, he drove to New York and he was sending me photos while he was here because he knew that I was going to college here. And I wasn't responding to him. And then the next day he sent me another long message declaring his love for me. And I was like, hi, I'm not interested. And I never spoke to him again. So it was like immediately after it was all done, I knew that I was like, I am scared of you. I feel deeply uncomfortable with what happened, how I was treated, the situation I was in, how I acted. There was still a part of me that felt guilty and it felt like, why don't you want this? You should want this. But there was also a part of me that was like, how did he know where you lived? How did he arrive at that random street corner? He had to have had someone drive him to that street corner earlier that morning. And then just stood there and waited for me to be done doing my makeup and text him being like, okay. To go through all of this effort to shoot your shot with an 18-year-old girl who's deeply insecure on the internet, you are like 17 different shades of fucked up. What the hell? Like, I don't even like thinking about this. He like so aggressively ruined my first kiss for me. He made it something very uncomfortable for me to look back on. He made it a story that when I tell people, they're like, there's no way. There's no shot. I would have given just about anything to have a boring, stupid first kiss story. To have a kiss where it's just like someone that I had a crush on in the high school parking lot, at prom when we're dancing. Like I would have literally given anything. To this day, I would have given anything to have a boring, fucking totally normal, mediocre first kiss. But instead I got this fucking horror story of a first kiss. It's awful, it's uncomfortable, and the fact that he was 22 years old and had to put on this let me go save this random bitch on the internet who's sad. Shut the fuck up. Like, that's crazy. That's fucking so crazy. It's not giving what you think it's giving. To be like, let me, a stranger, swoop in and save this young girl who's crying about not having her first kiss on the internet. Like, as an 18-year-old girl, like sharing my feelings to other 18-year-old girls on the internet, the absolute last thing that I'm looking for is some fucking random 22-year-old man to save me. I wasn't a fucking victim. I was 18 years old complaining about normal 18-year-old things. You know what I mean? I was 18 years old with a Tumblr blog being like, I wish I had my first kiss. That is a fucking normal thing to be doing at 18 years old. I didn't need to be saved. I didn't need to be bothered. You are a creepy adult man who took advantage of the fact that I was young, insecure, and vulnerable. That is fucked up. Looking back on all of it now, I do really wish that I had more experience saying no at that point in my life. I wish that I had been taught how to say no. I wish that it was more a part of how I was socialized at that point in my life to be able to understand my own boundaries. I feel like that was just not a conversation at the time. I think now in media, talking about boundaries is like everyone's talking about it. When I was in high school, that was not a thing. Do you remember what we used to talk about on the internet? The discourse on the internet in the year 2015? Like, yeah, I wish that I had the vocabulary to stand up for myself at that time. I wish that I could have better understood my emotions so that I could have stood up for myself. I think I was just totally ill prepared to deal with that kind of situation at 18 years old. To be dealing with for so many different reasons, to both deal with the fact that it's like having to reject a guy who wants you that you're not interested in, while also trying to balance the fact that this is a subscriber of mine, this is a supporter that I don't want to alienate, or I don't want to make him feel badly because I'm so grateful for his support, and so feeling like I needed to be like grateful and kind and just not stand up for myself whatsoever. Yeah, I definitely, it's hard. It's a really fucking difficult situation to put an 18-year-old in. And I just wish that I was better equipped to handle that at the time. I don't think it's possible for an 18-year-old to handle that great, but yeah, I wish that I had a little bit more help there, I guess. Obviously, I'm not glad that happened in any way, shape, or form. The same way I'm not glad that any of my other poor dating experiences happened. But I'm glad that I grew from them in the way that I did. I think for a while it was hard for me too. If you followed my YouTube channel back in like my early college days, I definitely used to laugh about this story and a lot of my other bad dating stories. Like, they were funny to me. At the time, story times were big on YouTube, and I definitely would capitalize off of my bad dating experiences because laughing about them and being able to talk about them on the internet and turn them into content made me feel better about them in a way. It made me feel like it wasn't that bad because here I am laughing and other people are laughing, and we can have there's a good story that comes out of this, you know, like it's all for the comedy. It's for the plot, as people say. I hate that. Sorry. I know that some people like that. I hate it. And I think that I really leaned into like laughing about the things that happened to me at that point in time, and it was hard for me to even like begin to unpack and really digest what had happened to me and how wrong it was and how I was failed in those situations until I got older and I like felt comfortable not joking about it anymore. It was like it made me so uncomfortable that I had to joke about it. I couldn't talk seriously about those things yet. And yeah, I feel generally uncomfortable about my existence on the internet through those years because I was talking about really sad things, like telling really sad stories about ways that I was violated as a teenager. And I had no way of talking about them in a way that was meaningful. So I would just sit there and laugh about them. And that's sad. I feel really bad for that version of myself. I think going through that section of my life has just made it's really, I hate to say it, it's shaped me a lot and who I am now. That's, one of the reasons that I'm so firm on my boundaries. It's one of the reasons that I make content about sex and dating, and that I care so much about young people being able to stand up for themselves and say no and ask for help. The reason why I'm so candid online, the reason why I feel comfortable or feel like called to share a lot of personal stuff on the internet is because I'm like, God, if only I had the language to describe how I was feeling. God, if only I knew how wrong it was. God, if only I could have known what my boundaries were and could have known how wrong that was. Like maybe I could have stood up for myself, and maybe I could have skipped over those years of my life where I was sitting making jokes about the worst things that have happened to me because I couldn't even begin to process how bad they were. So, yeah, we've lived and we've learned from the situation. Everything ended up okay. There was still a happy ending. I still end up completely fine. I'm living a good life. I'm very comfortable with setting my boundaries and saying no now. And although I've had some challenging stories, some challenging times, ultimately I have ended up okay. I guess the reason why I wanted to tell this story today was just to say, even those of us that seem super strong-willed and like I set great boundaries and I stand up for myself and I'm brave and I don't take shit, like even those of us that might appear like that have been put in situations where it was impossible to know what to do. And I just want you to know, whoever is listening, that if you have ever been put in a situation where you felt uncomfortable and you wanted to say no, but you didn't know how, and you feel guilty about that, I want you to know that it's not your fault and that you never should have been put in that situation in the first place. You were failed in that situation. You did not fail yourself. You did everything you could in that moment to show up for yourself. You used the tools that you had, and the fact that you were uncomfortable or afraid or just had no idea what to do, that's not your fault. Your brain and your body were just trying to take care of yourself. And that's all you can do. That's on the other person for putting you in that situation, and not you for not having all the tools to deal with it in the way that you would now in hindsight. Additionally, if you are someone who hasn't had your first kiss yet and you feel insecure about that, or it makes you feel any type of way, I just want to say that there is nothing weird about not having had your first kiss in high school, in college, however old you are. There is no one set time that everyone has to have had their first kiss or their first time having sex by. You don't need to judge yourself and your own life path against the people around you. A lot of the time, it's not worth it. I might have had my first kiss when I was 18, but it was awful. And I wish that it could have been different. So if you have not had your first kiss, don't worry about it. Because a lot of the time, what you are comparing yourself to isn't a cakewalk either. It sucks. You don't want it. So there's no set timeline that you have to be on. Give yourself grace. Let your life unfold in front of you in whatever timeline it has to, and it will. And don't feel bad for not having had your first kiss yet. I understand how that feels, but I promise you, when you get older and look back on it, you'll realize how absolutely inconsequential it was. So, anyways, that was the story of my first kiss. On a lighter note, I feel like Hinge is listening to me. They probably are. I have no evidence of this other than to say that I have been talking about Love Island for months on end at this point. Okay. I live in Brooklyn, so not in the UK. And all I do is talk about Love Island. Tell me why Hinge has been serving me an abundance of British people that live in New York. Tell me why. An abundance of them. Every day I'm swiping through and I get like at least 2 or 3 British people living in New York. And I'm like, what are the odds of that? Like, how many are there? I feel like I've never run into a British person in New York. And now all of a sudden they're all over my Hinge. I've matched with quite a few of them. And they all will speak in voice notes almost exclusively. I'm like, I see right through you. I see what you're doing. This is how you get bitches in the States, isn't it? All you have to do is be British and like send voice notes. You're trying to hook me with your voice. I was saying this to my friend Jordan yesterday. I was like, I feel like maybe if someone's British, the accent alone will like stun lock me enough that I might ignore the first 2 or 3 red flags just because they have a British accent and I'm like finding my footing. It's such a good accent. I sincerely wish I was good at it. I try really hard to be good at it. Stop. No, I can do better. Don't judge me for that. I am better. You've heard it. I can't really do the accent that well. I try my best, but you know, I'm just one girl. I'm just one girl at the end of the day, and you can't fault me for not having a great British accent because I've never actually been to the United Kingdom. So it's not my fault, really. I'm just basing this all off of what I've seen on the telly and on the internet. So, yeah, I wish I was good at it because they're sexy. They're just fucking sexy, dude. What can I say? American accents? Boo. British accents? I love the Brits. In internet news, something else that I've been loving keeping up with. Well, okay, a few things. First of all, random side note, I love Noah Beck. I don't think I've ever talked about this on the internet before, but I love Noah Beck. I just think he's such a normie. And he I don't know why. I just like him. When he started doing his like fit checks on Instagram, or not Instagram, TikTok, he would like a fit check to get ready for your dinner with me. And he would put on like the most normie outfit ever. I love that energy of just being like so happy to do normal things. Be like fit check, and he puts on like jeans and a white button up. I love it. I'm like, yeah, Noah, fucking rock those jeans and white button up. Normie King, do normal things. We love it. I don't know why. I'll be honest, I made t-shirts that said I Heart Noah Beck on it, and I was going to buy them. I didn't, but I was going to buy me and my sister one so we could be matching in our I Heart Noah Beck shirts. I just like him. I'm also a Dixie D'Amelio stan. These are some of my internet people that I enjoy for quite literally no reason. Noah Beck, Dixie D'Amelio. That's that. Actually, Dixie's song, The Real Thing, that's genuinely a good song. I won't say the same for the other ones, but Real Thing, I actually do fuck with that song. I know all the words. I do listen to it frequently. 'Cause I'm looking for the real thing, only the real thing. Okay, Mango just scared the fuck out of me. I don't know what she did. I'm sure that wasn't caught on camera, but she like jumped and almost fell and ripped my couch apart. Whew, okay, that was a sign to move on to the next thing that I was going to talk about, which was Addison Rae's fucking father. What's going on? If you haven't been keeping up with it, basically, Addison Rae's father is a menace to the world. I find it fascinating, this whole situation. Basically, he was caught texting like 19-year-olds, and I guess he's been known to hit on like young 19, 20-year-old LA girls at clubs and shit. He's been like a known weirdo for a bit of time now, but it only recently came like to light, I guess. And he was caught texting and like hitting on a 19, 20-year-old. There were TikToks made about it. And then Addison Rae's mom changed her like Instagram TikTok bio to single mom. Because it's Addison Rae, her parents. Addison's the oldest of 3 kids, I think. It's her, and then she has 2 younger brothers. And then her parents were married and in a ton of her content. Especially her mom, but like her family has always been like involved in her content. They had like a little Snapchat show together. She's posted with them a bunch, like when she released merch and stuff, they were in the shoots. Again, useless knowledge that I just like have in my brain. I don't even follow Addison Rae, and I know this. But yeah, her dad's a fucking weirdo. Gets caught cheating on her mom, hitting on all these like 19, 20-year-old girls. Her mom, who is also very strange on the internet, I'll say, in a different way, changes her bio to say single mom. And then Young Gravy and Addison Rae's mom have like some weird back and forth, very uncomfortable on TikTok. And then Addison Rae's dad is like, when Young Gravy won't accept your boxing match. And he's like, hulking out on TikTok. He's a grown man acting like this. It is undoubtedly one of the most cringe things that I've ever observed on the internet. I don't even have like a full reaction to it other than to just say, guys, what's going on here? Have you guys seen that too? Because what's happening? I'm frankly very disturbed and uncomfortable, and I, more than anything, I want to be in Addison Rae's friend group. I want the tea. I want the gossip. What the fuck is Addison Rae saying about her parents? Because Addison Rae unfollowed both of them on Instagram. I'm pretty sure her dad was first, but then she unfollowed her mom too. And her mom was always the one in like a ton of her content, and they were besties doing bestie things. But honestly, if I was Addison, I would have unfollowed both of my parents too, because they're both acting embarrassing as fuck. I don't even get it. Like, to be a parent and your daughter blows up for like being hot and doing little dances on the internet, and you think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to do that too. You're like, you know what? My 17-year-old daughter just got famous and she makes lots of money just from lip syncing and doing a little dance on TikTok. I'm going to actually do that as well. I'm 50 fucking years old. You know what? I want to have Addison's job. So let me just copy everything that Addison does. That's what I feel like happened with her parents. And that's very weird. That's very uncomfortable to me. Also, her dad was like flexing to these 19, 20-year-olds, be like, you hang with me. Like, I've got money. I've got private jet money. It's like, no, you don't. Addison does. That's so embarrassing to be like flexing your child's money. I want to understand what the family dynamics of these like families that are in the public influencer sphere. I want to understand their dynamics pre-internet fame. Like, what was the Addison Rae family lore before Addison was big on TikTok? Like, did it all fall apart after the internet fame, after the money? Is that what like sent her father down this weird fucking whatever the hell is happening? Is this whole thing, this is what made her parents act like this? Or were they weird before? Because it just feels wild to me to be like living your life. Like, I'm imagining if it was me growing up, my mom was a hairdresser, my dad owned his own business. If I became TikTok famous at like 17 years old, skyrocketed to fame, and then my mom was like, you know what? Fuck my job. I'm actually going to copy Maddie. I'd be like, okay, sure. A little weird, but okay. Like, I'm all for older women on the internet being hot. I have no issues with that. The weird part is like copying your young daughter who got famous doing that seemingly out of nowhere. Like, it's not like beforehand you also enjoyed making social media content, or I don't know. It just seems like they like saw the money that came in and were like, yeah, let's do that too. I'm just imagining if my parents did that. If like my parents were just like, yeah, fuck my job, let's start making TikToks too. I would have been like, okay, stop that. I'm a kid. Can I be a kid? Can you keep your adult job and just be like, look at my kid doing cool kid things? She has lots of followers on TikTok. Like, why do you then have to be like, yeah, let me get a TikTok too? And then prey on 19-year-olds. Huh? What's happening? I think in general, like, parents on the internet, I've got lots of questions. Like, I'm talking like family channels, and also when parents of influencers decide that they're also going to become an influencer. I just have some suspect there. Something's not all right. And obviously, like, I could go on and on about family channels forever because family channels are like deeply fucked up in a way that actually needs to stop. I don't even understand how people watch family channel videos because they actually, it's like Black Mirror shit. It's uncomfortable to watch. I don't think it's right to have kids on the internet like that, the way that family channels do it. Constantly showing their kid's face, making money off of like exposing their child's every waking moment. That's awful. You know, I think there's a way to make like parenting content on the internet without exploiting your child. I don't think that many of these channels know how to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think you could pretty easily make content about being a mom without exploiting your child in the process. But yeah, I don't know. Parents on the internet, there's something to be dived into there. I feel bad for Addison though, because her parents are acting crazy on the internet. And I feel worse for her two younger brothers who have just had their entire lives like completely uprooted and changed by their sister's incredible fame. And they've now lost their parents to some type of fame monster as well. Ooh, fame monster. But I feel bad for her younger brothers because it feels like that can't be good for a child to go through. To have your sister skyrocket to just like a pretty insane level of fame in the span of a year because of the internet. And then to like not have your parents to like rely on and make sure you're good because they're acting like fools on the internet as well. That's really sad. And her brothers are young too. So that sucks. But yeah, especially her dad. He's a train wreck that I just can't stop watching and keeping up with. Every time I hear something new about Addison Rae's father, I'm like, can we shut his account down? What's happening? So I guess that's it for today's episode. I've been recording for quite a while, so I think this episode probably is going to be a decent length. Good for me. Thank you guys so much for listening and supporting the show. It really means a lot to me. Again, you can follow the podcast over at Emotionally Online Pod on Instagram, or you can follow me in my personal account at Maddie Drawspec. Thank you guys so much for listening. I love you so much, and I will see you next week. Bye.